So what we're going to do is we're here to expose it, let people tell their story, and let everybody in the public see the horrors of the court system in Suffolk County, New York.
Long Island Backstory with Chief Correspondent Gary Jacobs.
Good evening, I'm Gary Jacobs, and welcome to another edition of Long Island Backstory, where we're shooting at the Alt T Studios in Hauppauge, Long Island, New York. My next guest today, I met several years ago at an event. Of course, when he told me he was a personal injury attorney, the first thing that I thought, like most of us, was a heartless son of a bitch ambulance chaser. But of course that intrigued me, and I decided I had to speak to him a little bit more and maybe go to him on a little bit. But after I spoke with him for a while and got to know him, I realized that he's a brilliant, talented, caring man that really believes that he's doing the right thing for his clients. My guest is attorney David Kaufman from Central Islip, who is a personal injury attorney. And when we met about a week ago to prepare for the show, and he said, what kind of questions are you going to ask me? And I said, well, I'm going to ask you what everybody asks you when you're at a party, and everybody always wants to get their free legal advice. So we all ask attorneys different things, and we all have questions about lawsuits, because listen, we all want to get rich getting a lawsuit, right? So these are basically the questions that probably all of my viewers would want to ask you. So Dave, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And my first question, just give a little bit of background about yourself, where you're from, and more importantly, why you got interested in becoming a lawyer, and secondly, what made you pick this field to get into personal injury?
All right, well, I started out my career at the district attorney's office prosecuting criminal cases, and then I moved, I was at the DA's office for 3 years, and then I moved to the largest personal injury firm on Long Island, and I did criminal work for them, and then moved into their torts bureau, the negligence bureau, and I started trying cases for them. And I thought that I could really make more of an impact on people's lives if I handled their negligence cases. I could get them money in their pocket, I can help them move through the insurance world more efficiently, and to be honest, I thought I was doing something good for them, and I was good at it, and so that's what I started to do.
So tell me, because when you told me personal injury, the first thing I thought was slip and fall, car accident, end of story. But then when I started doing a little bit more research and I looked at your website, there's just this thing of personal injury encapsulates a lot of different things. Tell me, what is a personal injury lawyer?
A personal injury lawyer handles any kind of matter where someone has been injured in any way and they have questions about it. Now it is, bread and butter is car accidents, slip and falls, dog bites. But then there's the construction accidents. A worker falls off a scaffold or a ladder. A patient claims to have been abused by her doctor. A kid is being bullied in school and the parents want to know what to do about it. Wow. Things like that. That's the kind of questions that I field on a daily basis and try and help people.
So you specialize in these type of things. And just like going to a doctor, when when you go to a heart surgeon, you don't go to a GP, right? So is this the same thing with lawyers? Because a lot of people say, well, I have a family lawyer, a lawyer in the family, he just does general law, or maybe, he does wills or estates, but he went to law school and something happened, and I called him up and he said, I have no case, forget it. Would you listen to that lawyer, or should you go to a person who specializes in this?
If it's me, I'm going to somebody who only does that one thing. But that's not to say that if you go to some general practitioner and he gives you advice or she gives you advice, it's not the right advice.
Right.
But to me, what I tell people is when I meet them or speak with them on the phone, even if you don't hire me, you want to talk to a lawyer who only does accident cases. There's things that I do that I think the general population of lawyers aren't doing. They don't know how to do it. They just don't know about it. They haven't taken the seminars. They don't have the experience. I mean, I'm doing this for almost 30 years. And there's things that I do that I think I do well, and I think I do better than a lawyer who doesn't do this on a daily basis.
Now, David, we watch TV at night, and it's loaded with commercials, especially late at night. Been injured in a car accident. Have asbestos, mesothelioma. You slipped in a grocery store. Call this 800 number, and we'll take your case. The interesting is, I travel a lot, and I see the exact same commercial for some of these big guys, wherever I am in the car, I tend to think when I watch it, oh, this is a local guy, I'm watching it on News 12. And when I see it, a lot of these guys are these huge firms that aren't even in New York State. So tell me, why should somebody not call that 800 number because they have so much behind them, this big commercial, as opposed to calling more of a solo practitioner as of yourself?
You know, in the early days, when I first started, there were no big firms that were across state lines. Now there are, and it's kind of weird for me because I saw one yesterday for the first time. It's a Florida firm, very big. I know about them. They have, ads everywhere. And now I just heard, because I looked into it today, that they're across the country. But the head lawyers, the named lawyers, aren't in every state. They're not handling your case. So if you call my office, you get me. You're going to ask, I'm going to be doing the work on your file. I'm going to court. I'm trying the case. I'm dealing with the insurance attorneys. I'm going to be dealing with the doctors, collecting the medical records, analyzing the case. And when you call, the bottom line is when you call on the phone, if you call one of these big firms, you're not going to talk to the name on the letterhead, and you'll probably never see them. But you call me, you're going to talk to me.
Now, I think what I see with the big firms is that a lot of people have the paralegal does the work for them. So, I'm not saying paralegals are bad. They're intelligent. They go to school. They can do the work. But because the attorney who's going to be really negotiating and trying the case hasn't spent so much time on it, they don't know the case. Whereas when you tell me about cases, about all these things that you do, you truly know the case. So no matter what somebody throws at you, if it ends up in court, you know the answer because you lived it. You did the research, you did the papers,
So after I left the DA's office, I went to the biggest firm on Long Island. And my job was, they had a lot of lawyers, and my job was to go to court every day and try cases. So they would give me the case file literally the day before or the day of that I'm supposed to pick a jury. And I would look in the file, and I would go through the file, and I would find things that either weren't done correctly. And of course, I couldn't do everything. Some of these files were tremendous. And for me, since I'm starting with your case right from day one and taking it all the way through, I know everything. I've seen every document. I vowed back then never to be put in that position again.
So when should somebody sue? Because I think we all hear, well, maybe you don't hear it, but as a layperson, everybody says, look, no matter what, if you get into an accident, you could sue because the insurance companies, they don't want to go to court and they're going to settle. And no matter what, you're going to get, if somebody hits you from behind, you're going to get 10 grand and you'll be done with it. Or if you slip in somebody's yard, if you don't know them, you tripped on this sidewalk, sue them, and they're going to throw money at you. The town will throw money at you. What is it? Is that true?
No.
Was it ever true?
Back when I first started, it was a little easier to get money for what we would call nuisance value. Nowadays, there are very few insurance companies, almost no municipalities that award nuisance value. They will fight you tooth and nail to send a message to the community, to the other lawyers out there. You're not getting money out of us. So it's a losing proposition for you. If you take the case, you're going to try the case, and if you lose the case, you're out of money.
Right. So you would tell somebody if they came in, hey, you have a case.
Oh, absolutely. I think that the most important part of what I do is to ferret out what is a good case, a possible case, and what isn't a case. Most of what I do is explaining to people how what they have is either a serious injury but poor liability, meaning they caused their own accident, or there is no liability, there's nobody to blame. Typical example is walking down the street and you just trip. People trip. Right. But that's what happens. Some people trip and they're not hurt. Some people trip and they are hurt. The people who trip and they're hurt, they come to see me sometimes, and I ask them, what did you fall on? They say, I don't know. Well, if you don't know, that's nobody's fault, but your own.
Sorry, because I think I guess listening to you, it's a misconception, was that somebody's always responsible. If somebody falls on my property, I'm responsible as the homeowner. What you're saying is that's not true.
You're not an insurer of your property.
So
okay. So if somebody falls on your property, if you didn't do anything wrong, you're not an insurance company. You don't have to pay for anything. You didn't do anything wrong. But negligence is doing something wrong.
So it has to be negligent. It's not somebody.
Correct.
If I go into a supermarket and I trip over my shoelace, the supermarket's not responsible.
Right. And before you said somebody has to do something wrong or somebody has to be responsible, you're responsible. You tripped over your shoelace. Tie your shoes better next time. That's what happens.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think that really most of us do believe that you better get insurance because you're going to get sued if something just happens in your place of business or.
And a lot of times I explain to people, it's not an insurance claim. It's a negligence claim. An insurance claim is the wind came, it knocked the chimney off my house. I have homeowners and they repair my chimney. A negligence claim is that chimney fell on me and I told my neighbor that chimney was loose and it wasn't this and it wasn't that and they'd repaired it and then there's a possible case.
So it's because I saw a show on Walmart one day and it showed like every day that they're served with like, I think it was like hundreds of lawsuits every day. And I think everybody looks and says, hey, if I trip in Walmart, they're huge. I'm just going to sue and they're going to pay out something.
I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
That's not true.
So they're going to fight.
They fight.
You have to do something wrong, and I'm sure they have cameras.
You have to prove.
Now, what if you sue and you say it's their fault, and they bring in the camera and they show that it wasn't your fault?
So I have a bunch of times spoken to people, and they tell me, just get the videotape. Well, a lot of times, even if there was a videotape, if it showed something, it's gone. They don't have the videotape anymore. I don't know where the videotape is. I don't have it. Do you have it? No. Mr. Walmart, do you have it? No, we don't have it, even though there's cameras everywhere. That videotape disappears. It's rare that you get a videotape that shows something good for you.
Right.
You always get the ones that are bad.
They happen to show up. So I have a lot of questions, but just on a personal, do you feel guilty when you sue somebody?
No. I only sue somebody when they've done something wrong, or failed to do something that they should have done to make that something safe.
But if somebody's driving a car and they just get into an accident, they had a bad day and they crash into somebody, they had a bad day, and all of a sudden they get hit with $1 million lawsuit?
They can get hit with a $3 million lawsuit, but the question is how much coverage do they have? How much insurance exists? Because it's really difficult to get money out of somebody's pocket personally.
Well, that was one of my questions that I wanted to ask, so we'll skip to that. If you sue, let's say you get into an accident and the person, he's an illegal alien, and from what I heard, illegal people can get licenses here in New York State. I don't know if that's true or not.
It's true.
So they can get a license. So it's unbelievable. But so now they have a license. They're driving. They crash into you. And they have no insurance. They have no assets. They're not even legal. So what do you do?
So in that case, your own insurance company, and you buy insurance to protect yourself in case you have an accident, in case you're injured, and you have insurance to cover that situation. What if that guy who hits me has no insurance? What if that guy has no assets?
Right.
Then you have coverage. It's called uninsured motorist coverage.
So you're suing your own insurance company?
It's usually not a lawsuit. It's what's called the first party benefit, and normally it's a filing of documents. It might be an arbitration. There are lawyers who bring it through the lawsuit process. It's possible. But usually you can resolve it through arbitration.
So do all of our insurances have uninsured, or is that a supplemental?
Everybody has. If you buy insurance in the state of New York, you have uninsured motorist.
Oh, well, that's a good thing, actually.
Yeah. And there's something called supplemental underinsured, which is, let's say you hit that guy, that guy hits you, right? He caused the accident, because that's the first thing you need, is they have to have done something wrong.
Right.
So that guy has got a minimal policy, $25,000 in the state of New York, and you're badly injured, and your injury is worth 10 times that amount. You could buy supplemental underinsured motorist. So you take his 25 for your injury, and then you make a claim against your own insurance company.
So would you recommend that? In your experience?
It's so cheap. It's so important. It's besides having enough insurance in case you screw up and cause somebody big injury, you want to protect your assets. That's the next most important thing. Supplemental underinsured motorist. Oh, really important. Okay, I tell everybody to buy it.
That's good to know. What about, has anybody ever called at a party called you an ambulance chaser?
They always call me an ambulance chaser.
Word, but you're a lawyer, people ever call you an ambulance chaser? How do you answer that?
I think that they probably call me an ambulance chaser mostly in jest. I like to think of it that way. And how I really respond is I always tell them, a law school professor of mine said that lawyers can't chase ambulances, but insurance companies can. And the funny thing is, yesterday, a woman came into my office. She had signed a month before. She'd had an accident a month before. An insurance adjuster came to her house 2 days later and had her sign a release of all claims. She got $200. And now she wanted to reverse it because her wrist that she thought wasn't so bad required surgery.
Right. And now she's done, I guess.
She's out. Not only did she sign...
That's an ambulance chaser.
Yeah, well, that's an insurance company ambulance chaser.
Exactly.
That's right.
A reverse ambulance chaser. They try to get there before the lawyers.
It's bad. So, and I'm not so sure what that guy told her, but she signed a legal document. She knew what she was signing, unfortunately, and she's got no case now.
Now, let's talk sexual harassment. I see that comes under personal injury.
It does.
We just want to touch on it briefly because there's so much with sexual harassment. You have, Roger Ailes had the whole thing, and Bill O'Reilly, and everything, and you have Bill Cosby, of course,
Right.
all these years later. What is sexual harassment? Because in the old days, I would say, somebody's flirting with this guy at work, flirting with her. At what point? And I know everybody throws out sexual harassment, right? They get fired from a job, that's because they sexually harassed me. The boss, somebody asked me out on the job, I was sexually harassed. What is sexual harassment? Where does somebody what crosses the line? I've heard things like the woman has to tell you to stop it before it becomes harassment. To clarify, what is sexual harassment?
Sexual harassment is a very difficult thing to define. And the reason is that we only know that it is sexual harassment when a jury tells us that it is. Now, you can use some very basic, basic smarts and understand that if you're the boss and and you're a guy and there's a younger woman in your employ, you shouldn't be hitting on her. Come on, go out with me. I mean, that's like the easy stuff.
Right.
But that would be sexual harassment. When you put somebody in a place because of their gender that they feel puts their job at issue in any way, their job performance, their pay, that could be considered sexual harassment.
So they don't have to tell the person to stop, I don't like this. I'm sure it helps the case, but they don't have to.
They don't have to. I mean,
Because if they're uncomfortable, I'm sure a lot of, if your boss is hitting on you, you're going to say, stop it, I'm going to sue, I'm sure sometimes you can't. And a young kid especially.
A lot of people
an
say...
18-year-old girl is, and the boss is 40, 50 years old hitting on her.
And that happens a lot.
But he could also think he's just, hey, I like her, I'm going to hit on her.
And he could think anything he wants, but in the end, we're judged by the jury. And if you want to be judged by the jury, then keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
That's what happens.
So what is the difference between a contingency versus an hourly case? Are all cases... these cases contingency, or could somebody come and say, look, I don't care, I still want to sue, and you could say, okay, pay me this much an hour?
So personal injury cases are contingency cases, and I believe that personal injury lawyers are only allowed to accept contingency retainers. A contingency retainer is, if we get money for you, we take a piece of it. If we don't get any money, we are out the money.
So I guess the idea is that you wouldn't file a frivolous lawsuit.
Exactly.
Because why would you bother doing it? There's no financial incentive for you. I mean,
exactly.
That makes sense to me.
Plus, a poor person wouldn't be able to prosecute their own case, so we can do that for them. So it raises the bar for, it gets rid of the economic issue that poor people couldn't hire lawyers back in the day.
Right. That's interesting. One of the things we know in the divorce, which is what I do a little bit more involved in, is going to trial. And most of the cases don't go to trial. And people hire a lot of attorneys, and I look at the attorney, I go, that attorney can't go to trial. And they don't have to most of the time because they'll settle the case. But if I know that the attorney can't go to trial, it gives I say, look, we can push really hard because this guy, this gal will never want to go to trial. If they have to go to trial, they're going to have to hire another law firm. First of all, first part of the question is how many of these cases actually do go to trial? The second part is, does this happen in your profession where a lot of attorneys will just file the paperwork, hope to settle? If it doesn't settle, they'll dump the case onto somebody else. And third, do you go to trial?
Okay.
That's a lot of questions right there.
I'm going to go in reverse order.
Okay.
I try my own cases. When I was in the DA's office, I tried a lot of cases. And then for the 3 years with that personal injury firm, I tried a lot of cases there too. And when I spent about 10 years in the city. I tried cases in the city, and then I moved out to Long Island.
So you're comfortable trying cases?
Yeah. I've always said I'm not shy and I'm not proud, so I can stand up and say stuff in front of a group of people, and that's what a trial lawyer does. You got to be an advocate. So that's the first part. And then do a lot of lawyers file cases and then hope that the case settles? I think they do. When I was in law school, I learned you don't file the lawsuit unless you're ready to try that case. So that's how I see it. I don't file papers and start a lawsuit unless I'm ready to try the case. That's my bottom line. And there was a third question there, and I don't remember.
Well, I think it's important that to me, if hiring an attorney like you,
oh, yeah,
and I asked you the question knowing the answer because I do know you're a very competent trial attorney, so sort of a setup question. But I think other attorneys who are up against you in insurance companies must say, hey, David Kaufman's serious. You know, if we don't give him his number, he's going to try the case and he's going to be capable at a trial. I think that helps you get a better a better deal, that you're not afraid to go to trial. And I think that people, I know when I talk to an attorney and they're a bumbling fool, they may be smart, but they can't speak. And I go, this sucker's never going to go to trial. Push them and push them and push them because they're going to settle. They know that's not going to happen with you.
So I learned back when I was with the DA's office and criminal lawyers would come in to negotiate a plea, there were a bunch of lawyers, they would never try a case. So you didn't have to negotiate with them. They were never trying it.
Right.
So I learned right then and there, the only sword that we have in personal injury is to try the case. And do I try cases? I do. And I believe that the insurance companies know that, and the lawyers that I meet in the courthouse that I know now for years and years of trying cases with them, they know. They call the home office. Look, he's going to try this case.
Right.
And that means something.
Right.
It doesn't mean I don't go to trial. I do have to try cases.
Right. So somebody's watching the show because they Googled, I just got into an accident on Long Island, and do I sue? Who should I hire? And now they get to this point in the show. When do you consult with a personal injury lawyer such as yourself? You get into a car accident, you're sitting in the hospital, and all your friends are coming in going, you're going to have to sue, you're going to get a gold mine, you're going to become a millionaire. Do they pick up the phone from the hospital bed and call a lawyer? Do they wait till they get out? Is it important to at least speak to somebody so they don't, could they do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing that would actually hurt their case down the road? What does somebody do who just got into an accident? They know they were hurt, they don't know how bad, but they know that they were hurt and there's going to be bills. When do they call the attorney?
You want to call a lawyer right away. As soon as you're able to have an in-depth, intelligent discussion. You don't want to call me from the emergency room and there's doctors taking your blood pressure or giving you medication. I don't want to have to go to a hospital. Lawyers don't belong in hospitals. You get out of the hospital, you call me, and then we can talk. I can come to your house, you can come to my office, we can be respectable and responsible about it. I don't need you coming to my office when you're bleeding. Go to the doctor. Okay. It's crazy what people think, but I get it, and that's not the wrong thing.
Right, people don't know what to do, and
exactly.
They don't want to lose their chance, say the wrong thing to the investigator.
And you can say the wrong thing, and you can sign documents and sign the wrong things. You can put down the wrong information, but basically when you have an accident, call the police.
Okay.
After the police, you make sure that you get to a doctor, you get to a hospital. If you're injured, go. And then when you get out of the hospital or leave the doctor's office, call me.
What if you're not sure though? You get into an accident and your adrenaline's going, and I know a lot of people make fun of whiplash, right? Everybody goes, oh, they got whiplash. They said they got whiplash, but whiplash is real, right? I mean, I've been in an accident where I didn't hurt till the next day, and then I woke. Maybe my adrenaline was going, or I don't know the medical thing, but I woke up the next day, and my back hurt. And my neck hurt me. I'm like, oh shit, I got whiplash. So you don't always know it, but is it a mistake if you call the cops and you go, I feel fine?
It's not the best thing, and does it come up at trial? The defense attorneys always say, they call the cop and they say, Mr. Officer, what did that person say to you at trial? And they say, she told me she felt fine. And at Suffolk County jurors, they look at you, but everybody knows that sometimes you wake up that next morning, you're stiff, you can't move. So look, tell the cop the truth. And if you think that you're okay, you could say, I think I'm okay. You're not a doctor.
Do you have to go, sometimes they'll say, do you need an ambulance? If you want to protect your case, is it better should you take the ambulance and get checked out?
You probably should. If you think that you're in any way injured, you should go get checked out. You never know, firstly.
Well, I've seen that, listen, we see stories of people who get brain, I don't know, I guess they're blamed, they break something, a blood vessel.
Liam Neeson's wife fell on the the slopes at skiing.
That's what I was thinking of, and you don't know it.
And 5 hours later, she died.
Right, and I'm sure that's not this happens to people. They get into a car accident, they bang their head, they think they're okay, and
I have a headache, I'm okay,
right.
And it's a brain bleed.
Right.
So you should go get checked out. It's never a problem. Plus, even if you don't have private health insurance, you have no-fault insurance. If you're in an accident and you're injured, you go to the hospital, even if it's a minor injury, no-fault covers your medical expenses.
So if you go and then you end up in court, I know a lot of people are going through lawsuits. They say, go to a chiropractor. You go to a chiropractor, he says, oh, you got to see me 3 times a week for the rest of your life. Do you need to go to that treatment? Because some people can say, look, I'm in pain, but I'm going to stick it out and go to work.
The question at trial is, what can we prove? And if you don't go to a doctor, it's a little more difficult to prove that you're in pain. If you do go to a doctor, at least we have that threshold where, hey, they went to a doctor. Going to a doctor is some evidence of being in pain. If you don't go, it doesn't look good.
Because I think pain is hard to, you look at somebody, I look at you, you could be in pain right now. I don't know if you're in pain. How do you prove that you're in pain. You could have a backache right now. I would never know.
So the New York law draws a distinction between minor injuries and serious injuries. You can't start a lawsuit unless you have a serious injury.
Oh, interesting.
And a serious injury is 6 different categories, and the first 4 give you some idea of what serious is. Any broken bone is a serious injury. Any disfiguring impairment, so a big scar across your forehead. If you're out of work for 90 days in the first 6 months of the accident, that's serious. And if you're a woman and you're pregnant, you lose that baby, that's a serious injury. There's 2 other categories. That's whiplash and MRIs and things like that. But those first 4 categories give you some idea of what a serious injury needs to be.
Wow, that's interesting. We're starting to run out of time, but I want to brag a little bit for you because I was reading, some of your cases, and you have a lot, but these are some of the verdicts and settlements, and if you want to comment on any of them really quick, you got $1.64 million for a wife of a 45-year-old administrator who was killed when his intestine was severed during an abdominal surgery. I mean, that's a serious, horrible case, but you know what? The family needs money to live. You got $2 million for a family of a 46-year-old married homemaker working part-time who was killed instantly when the vehicle she was operating was struck by a truck crossing over the center divider. But do people have $2 million insurance? Is it collectible?
It was a large corporation.
Okay, so they had the insurance.
Yeah.
You get $900,000 for 42-year-old construction worker nailing down a tarp on a roof who was knocked off the roof when a bundle of shingles slides off the peak of the roof, knocking him 16 feet to the ground, where he suffered bilateral broken legs and compartment syndrome. But whose fault is this?
Okay,
Isn't that
so
like an act of God?
Okay, so it's not an act of God. That is a construction accident. It's called a labor law claim.
Was anybody negligent, though?
The general contractor is responsible for the safety features on that job site. So this guy was nailing down a blue tarp on a roof at the end of the day because it was raining a little bit. And so one of the other subcontractors is dropping a large bundle of shingles on the peak of the roof, literally on the peak, like right on top. And so he's down at the end of the roof, it slides down and knocks him off. And the general contractor is responsible for height-related injuries, so they should have had a tether, they should have had some safety device for him to not to fall.
So that's why they're negligent, because
Yes.
they didn't provide him with which we see these roofers all the time.
All the time.
Just running around the roofs, like an accident waiting to happen.
With no safety devices.
Yeah. You got $750,000 for a 46-year-old construction worker who falls off a ladder, fracturing his heel, requiring surgery to repair it. $750,000, but if the guy just falls off a ladder, how is somebody responsible for that?
Because the general contractor is responsible for ladders. A ladder wasn't the right tool for that job. It should have been a high-low.
Man, you got to know your stuff to get into all these. That's why, you know what? You need a specialist who's been around the ropes before. But if anybody wants our information, do you offer free consult? Well, I guess you do, because you only take contingency. So listen, you got nothing to lose. If you think you have a personal injury case, you contact an attorney. David Kaufman is in Central Islip, born and raised here on Long Island. He's got a ton of experience, and I think it came across today that this is somebody who knows his stuff and really cares about what he's doing. David, thank you very much for coming on the show. I'm Gary Jacobs. Again, thank you for joining us at Long Island Backstory. Please do us a favor. If you like what you see, share it on Facebook, Twitter, any social media. There's a lot of valuable information here. And if you're Googling this because you had a personal injury, follow the advice, because you can make a bad mistake. And as David Kaufman said, there are ambulance chaser insurance companies that don't want to pay out. Don't let them screw you and ruin your life. You sign that paper or you cash that check because you're desperate for money, it could totally wipe out your ability to ever come back for a claim. We'll see you next week.